The Dutch crypto market is seeing the first of most likely many small crypto exchanges get squeezed out following the passage of heavily criticized anti-money laundering (AMLD5) regulations. Announced Friday in a company blog, Bitter founder Ruben Waterman said his Bitcoin exchange, launched in 2018, will shut down by April 28 as the one-man operation does not have the capital to meet the new regulations. The Dutch National Bank (DNB) estimates that registration alone costs $36,500, in addition to rolling compliance needs. The development shows what Dutch regulators expect of financial upstarts and could speak to future hurdles to cryptocurrency development in the greater European Union. Above all, Bitter would have to appoint a dedicated compliance officer who's responsible for compliance with the new regulations, Ruben wrote Friday. Who can I appoint? Myself? That probably doesn't work, also being the sole shareholder and director. Read more, Dutch crypto startups brawl with regulators over scope of EU money laundering rule. Under Dutch law, businesses pay for their own regulations out of pocket. Ruben said the options for his Bitcoin savings platform included keeping a lawyer on retainer, paying a compliance officer, or finding a third party to manage compliance costs in addition to the government registration fee. Impossible, he said, given the firm's small size. Making sense of it all. As CoinDesk reported in December, Dutch cryptocurrency firms were entangled in a protracted battle of semantics with the DNB and Ministry of Finance (FIN) over the implementation of the European Union's fifth anti-money laundering directive (AMLD5), which went into effect in January 2020. Bitcoin firms CoinDesk spoke with said the DNB and FIN were strengthening the EU directive needlessly while using doublespeak with the Dutch parliament. The firms alleged the financial regulators had created a de facto licensing regime, whereas AMLD5 calls for mere registration of cryptocurrency firms. These allegations were further supported by the Dutch Council of State, a governmental advisory board widely respected in the country, which asked the finance agencies to clarify their proposals. Members of the Dutch parliament held two competing priorities in mind: fighting money laundering and supporting the nation's fintech firms. Read more, European crypto firms brace for higher costs as AMLD5 takes effect. In a parliamentary report from April 21, Dutch Senator Bastiaan van Apeldoorn said it's unlikely cryptocurrencies are being used on the same scale as cash for money laundering, but they still require supervision. Finding a soft regulatory touch that wouldn't displace small players in the market remained the goal, he said. The cryptocurrency phenomenon does exist and is likely to take on even larger, if not different, forms in the future. It is therefore good that this is also adequately regulated with regard to money laundering, Van Apeldoorn said. Editor's note: this report was translated. The legislation was tied up on the point for months, even though the EU called for the directive to go into effect on January 10. Legislation was finally adopted last Tuesday, although opinions on its outcome differ. Wrote Bitter's Ruben. The Minister of Finance Wopke Hoekstra then changed some wording so as to comply with the Council of State's request, but not actually changed any of its content. The Senate has raised questions about this practice but nevertheless approved the new regulations. The registration process was still a licensing regime, verbiage aside, Ruben argued. If it looks like a duck, swims like a duck and quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck, he wrote. Other players. In a blog post last Wednesday, Bitonic, a Dutch exchange led by Don Kleiman, who also heads a crypto lobbying group VBNL, said the final legislation resolved the two main issues of concern for Bitonic. The firm said the DNB and FIN had clarified the difference between licensing and registration plus the associated regulatory